Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and take a deep breath before we begin, because today's update is built around one of the most talked about speculative stories in the global currency community, and it has created a shockwave of attention unlike anything we've seen in a very long time. Whether you're watching this from your living room couch, sitting in your car during a break, or catching this update the moment it drops, I want you to lean in and stay with me until the final moment, because what we're diving into today is something that has people buzzing across forums, group chats, and community calls. Today, we're highlighting the storyline that so many viewers have asked about: a fictional scenario in which a 3-day Vietnam Dong intake window opens, allowing all note types, old and new, to be accepted together without exception. Now again, this is a scenario-based news script meant for entertainment, analysis, and what-if exploration. But even as a fictional scenario, the idea has created excitement and curiosity because it mirrors the kind of movement people often imagine during large-scale monetary adjustments. So get comfortable, because this script is going to unpack every angle of this imagined event, step by step, in a slow, clear, and deeply engaging way so you can enjoy the full experience. Imagine waking up to headlines in a fictional financial world saying that a tightly timed, limited 72-hour window has been activated, allowing every form of Vietnam Dong currency note, older paper notes, newer polymer notes, large denominations, and smaller ones, to be brought into designated intake locations with no limitations, no exclusions, and no design-based restrictions. In this story scenario, the news hits like a spark in a quiet room, instantly lighting up conversations everywhere. People in this fictional world are hearing that there is no separation between series, no required print years, and no filtering between old and new note styles. Everything is being accepted equally during this brief, controlled period. Now, if you picture how global currency enthusiasts react in this imagined world, you would see excitement, nervousness, questions, and rapid movement all happening at the same time. A 3-day window in any financial storyline, especially one involving full note acceptance, creates a sense of urgency, curiosity, and speculation. What does it mean? What comes next? Is something bigger lining up after the intake closes? These are the questions swirling around the fictional communities following this scenario, and today we're going to explore that entire landscape in detail. In this scenario, when a financial authority opens a narrow 3-day window, it is almost never portrayed as random. Writers and analysts in fictional settings typically treat such windows as carefully planned events that hint at preparation, coordination, and system-wide evaluation. A timed window implies that someone behind the scenes, within the fictional banking structure, wants all notes in circulation, old and new, brought in for verification, organization, and digital recording. Think of it like a storyline where a country prepares to update or restructure its currency system, and before any major step is taken, the existing notes must be gathered, checked, and tallied. It's a familiar storytelling device used in futuristic economies, political thrillers, and financial dramas. And in this script, the full acceptance of every note type suggests that the purpose is not to exclude anyone or filter anything, but to perform a complete sweep. An intake designed to clean the slate before a hypothetical next phase. This is the kind of plot point that gives audiences that sense of tension, because it implies that something bigger may follow, even if the story doesn't reveal exactly what that next step might be. As the fictional news spreads across this imagined world, the reaction from people holding Vietnam Dong is immediate and emotional. Some fictional holders are excited, believing this intake window is the moment they've waited years for. Others are nervous, not sure what it means or how fast they need to move. Many are in disbelief, asking whether it's real, whether it will last, and whether they should take advantage of the intake period before it closes. In this scenario, message boards light up with people sharing their experiences, discussing how intake locations responded, how smooth the process was, and whether older notes were accepted without question. The emotional energy is high, because the idea of all notes being accepted, especially older, vintage series, removes the fear that people in the fictional community often express, the fear that they bought the wrong notes, or that their notes might not be accepted later. The storyline amplifies tension by showing crowds moving quickly, checking their storage boxes, organizing bundles of notes, and making sure everything is ready to go before the window closes. It becomes a moment of collective motion, one where fictional characters feel they are participating in something significant. One of the biggest focuses in this scenario is the message that every note counts. Older printings, newer polymer versions, small notes, large notes, and everything in between. In fictional currency stories, this is a crucial plot element because it removes the technical barrier that many story characters worry about. If a character in the script holds old 1990s notes, they may question their validity. If someone holds the newer 500 Zalazin polymer notes, they may wonder whether those will be preferred or prioritized. But in this scenario, the fictional authorities state that all notes are equal during the intake window, creating a sense of harmony in the storyline. This detail is not just thrown in for drama, it serves a purpose. It unifies the fictional community, eliminates fear-driven divisions between note series, and brings everyone onto the same level before the fictional system moves to its next undisclosed step. For viewers, this creates a sense of simplicity and clarity that keeps them engaged in the unfolding situation, wondering what the real motive behind the equal acceptance might be. In this script, when fictional characters go to their designated intake locations, they encounter short, straightforward instructions. No long explanations, no technical lectures, no warnings, just simple confirmations like, "Yes, we are accepting all notes during the intake window." These short responses add suspense, because they imply that front-line workers received specific instructions from higher levels, suggesting coordination at a national organizational level within the story. The fictional banks aren't asking why the notes are being brought in, nor are they discouraging people from participating. Instead, they process each intake quickly, mark it as received, and send people on their way. This creates a clean, structured environment in the story, reinforcing the idea that this operation was planned, not spontaneous. For viewers, these simple but powerful details create curiosity. Why are the instructions so short? Why is everything accepted without questions? Why are workers sticking strictly to the script? All of this helps the fictional news segment feel tight, controlled, and intentionally designed. One of the most surprising fictional elements in this scenario is the idea that there are no limits on the amount of notes a person can bring in during the intake window. In many real-world financial operations, temporary exchange periods may include caps or restrictions, but in this fictional script, there are none. This amplifies the storyline's tension because it suggests that the fictional authorities want all notes, regardless of quantity, denomination, or age. This detail fuels the character's imagination. Why would a system willingly allow unlimited intake, unless it needed full circulation data? Unless it needed to prepare the system for something upcoming? Unless there was a fictional adjustment or restructuring waiting on the other side of the intake window? These are the kinds of questions that create suspense and keep the audience watching until the end. The idea of no limits adds both urgency and inclusiveness, making every fictional holder feel that they have a role to play in this unfolding event. In this scenario, analysts within the fictional world begin calling this intake period a cleanup phase, or a pre-adjustment sweep, suggesting that the entire purpose is to gather everything before shifting the system forward. These fictional analysts speculate that once a country gathers all notes, they can sort them, destroy damaged ones, archive older ones, and rebalance their internal supply before a hypothetical currency evolution. This type of plot element is common in fictional economic storylines because it creates a believable sense of preparation without revealing the final outcome. The window is small, the intake is fast, and once it closes, characters expect a quiet period where the fictional system recalibrates. This quiet period becomes the fertile ground for theories, predictions, and anticipation, all of which enhance the drama and excitement of the storyline. Viewers stay hooked, wanting to know what happens after the intake closes, even though the script is clear that nothing concrete has been announced beyond the fictional scenario. As the fictional storyline continues, reports begin pouring in from people across different regions who say they visited their local intake locations during the 3-day window. In this scenario, the stories all share a similar theme. The process is smooth, fast, and strangely calm. Characters describe stepping into their intake centers expecting long lines, confusion, or pushback, but instead they find organized desks, ready tellers, quiet instructions, and immediate acceptance of every note placed on the counter. According to the fictional reports, tellers are not debating which note series qualifies. They are not checking long lists. They are not calling supervisors for clarification. They simply take the notes, count them, and provide the individual with a quick confirmation slip. This simplicity becomes a core storytelling element because it contrasts with what many fictional holders expected after years of speculation and uncertainty. The intake workers remain polite but firm, sticking to short instructions and not offering details about what happens after the window closes. This limited information fuels even more curiosity within the story and pushes the fictional community into deeper discussion about why everything suddenly feels so coordinated. After the first day of the fictional intake window passes, characters in the storyline begin to notice a shift in the atmosphere. It's not loud, chaotic, or dramatic. It's quiet, steady, and controlled. This quietness becomes meaningful to watchers of the story because it suggests that something is happening behind the scenes that hasn't yet been revealed to the public within the fictional world. In many speculative storylines, the calm before a shift is used to build tension and make viewers lean forward, anticipating what might come next. People in this fictional scenario take the calm as a sign that the intake is a step in a larger arc, something that fits into a sequence rather than a random event. Some fictional analysts begin discussing historical patterns in stories like this, how quiet periods often appear right before announcements, restructurings, or system updates. Again, none of this is confirmed within the narrative, but the atmosphere is intentionally designed to make characters and viewers feel that they are standing on the edge of a transition point. This moment of calm becomes a dramatic device that keeps the audience tuned in with heightened attention. Within the imaginary world of this script, fictional media outlets begin breaking down what the 3-day window could mean. Carefully, cautiously, and without overstepping into predictions. Their fictional coverage focuses on the basics: all notes accepted, old and new included, no limitations, no exclusions. Then they shift into speculation, posing questions to viewers. Why now? Why all notes? Why such a short window? In the storyline, media analysts remind their audiences that intake events like this, even in fictional environments, require planning, coordination, and internal structure. They emphasize that such windows do not typically appear suddenly or without purpose in a narrative. News panels in the script debate whether the fictional government is preparing for digitization, whether they're updating their currency tracking systems, or whether they're conducting a circulation audit. None of the fictional panelists claim to know the answer, but they all acknowledge that the timing feels intentional. These discussions mirror the way real-world analysts break down developing stories, giving the fictional world a grounded, believable rhythm that keeps the viewer immersed in the unfolding drama. By the second day of the fictional intake window, emotions among the characters in the story begin to shift from shock to realization. Characters who were nervous on day one feel calmer once they see that older notes are being accepted without hesitation. Those who hesitated start to feel urgency as the deadline approaches. Some fictional individuals who bought notes years ago but never believed anything would happen begin reevaluating their choices. Meanwhile, characters who have followed the storyline for a long time feel validation, as the intake window resembles events they had imagined might occur someday. The emotional intensity creates memorable moments, such as fictional families gathering together to sort their notes, friends calling one another to confirm the process, and online groups buzzing with real-time opinions. This emotional arc deepens the narrative and adds human weight to the scenario, allowing viewers to connect with the characters' inner experiences. It makes the fictional world feel alive, reflective, and relatable, transforming a monetary intake event into something that resonates on a personal level within the story. One of the strongest storytelling choices in this fictional scenario is the decision to limit the intake period to exactly 3 days. Writers often use short windows in financial thrillers to create urgency, tension, and momentum. A 3-day limit tells the audience that the fictional authorities are working on a tight timeline. They want the intake completed efficiently and without leaving the window open long enough for unnecessary delays, manipulation, or large-scale confusion. Within the storyline, fictional experts suggest the short window is intentional because a longer period might slow down the next phase of whatever the financial system is preparing. The imagined analysts also explain that a longer window could allow outside pressures or internal misunderstandings to develop. By keeping it to 3 days, the fictional authorities ensure that the event is sharp, fast, and controlled. This element also keeps the audience alert, reinforcing the idea that every moment counts and viewers should stay engaged to see what happens once the countdown ends. It's a strategic narrative tool that amplifies the storyline's suspense. As expected in a fictional storyline involving major financial operations, theories begin circulating about what might be happening behind the scenes. Some fictional commentators suggest that the intake is part of a modernization program. Others speculate that the fictional government is conducting a supply audit before updating their monetary system. Some characters even guess that the intake is tied to possible future reforms within the narrative. None of these theories are confirmed, but they all add thematic weight and intrigue to the story. In fictional economic dramas, behind-the-scenes theories serve as the connective tissue between events, helping the audience imagine the depth of the world even when the script does not explicitly reveal it. The theories add layers of mystery, raising the stakes of the storyline and encouraging viewers to form their own interpretations. This creative ambiguity is a classic storytelling method, keeping the fictional world feeling vast and full of hidden motives, even when the audience knows that the scenario is designed purely for entertainment and narrative engagement. In this fictional world, analysts discuss how unusual it is to see so many intake centers operating in sync. They note that for such a scenario to unfold smoothly, training sessions must have taken place, tellers must have received clear guidance, locations must have updated their systems, technology must have been prepared ahead of time. The fictional reporters emphasize that intake events like this have multiple layers of internal preparation, even if the public only sees the surface-level interactions. This detail gives weight to the storyline because it suggests that the fictional authorities spent significant time getting ready. They were not improvising or reacting, they were executing a plan. And while the script never reveals what the plan ultimately leads to, the idea that the banking system prepared extensively encourages characters and viewers to wonder what motivated the operation. It creates a sense that the intake window is one chapter in a larger fictional narrative, and that the story is building toward a meaningful climax once the intake period ends and the dust settles. As the fictional event unfolds, characters in neighboring countries begin paying attention. The storyline portrays fictional analysts from around the world observing, taking notes, and discussing what this intake window might imply for future financial developments. This detail gives the narrative a sense of scale, showing that the fictional Vietnam Dong intake is not just a domestic storyline. It has regional and global curiosity attached to it. In the story, fictional foreign reporters mention that events like this could signal modernization efforts, system recalibration, or internal auditing, again all framed within the fictional world. This global attention adds dramatic weight because it suggests that other nations' markets and institutions are watching, not interfering, but analyzing. It creates the feeling that the fictional event is part of a broader economic atmosphere within the imagined world, where shifts in one country can draw attention from others. This sense of global awareness adds momentum and keeps viewers glued to the unfolding fictional storyline. As the fictional intake window moves into its final day, tension rises in the storyline. Characters who waited until the last moment suddenly feel pressure to act. Some fictional individuals who were skeptical begin to reconsider, realizing the window will close soon. The narrative also highlights intake centers becoming slightly busier as procrastinators arrive. Even though everything is still calm and organized, the energy feels different, more focused, more urgent. Characters start sharing reminders with friends, telling family members not to miss the window. In many fictional thrillers, the final day of an event like this symbolizes the turning point where anticipation peaks before a shift occurs. The countdown element creates a cinematic feeling, making viewers feel as if they are watching the moments before a major reveal. This sense of a ticking clock heightens attention, drawing the audience deeper into the story and preparing them emotionally for the next chapter after the intake closes. As the fictional clock moves toward the final hours of the intake window, the storyline intensifies again. The centers remain calm but busy, with characters arriving in steady waves. The staff at the fictional intake locations follow their simple instructions, accept all notes, process them, and provide confirmation. Characters describe the environment as strangely peaceful, almost too calm considering the significance they believe the intake might represent. This peacefulness enhances the dramatic tone because it suggests the system knows exactly what it's doing, even if the public does not. In speculative fiction, these quiet closing hours are often used to build suspense, symbolizing the final inhale before the story takes a sharp turn. The audience begins wondering, what happens after midnight? Does something change right away? Does the fictional system announce something? Or does everything go silent for a period of recalibration? The uncertainty is what makes the fictional scenario engaging, because it leaves room for imagination and future developments. As the intake period comes to an end, once the fictional intake closes, characters in the storyline begin discussing what they believe comes next. Some expect immediate announcements, though fictional analysts caution that major financial changes rarely happen instantly. Others think a period of silence will occur, followed by adjustments or updates later. Some fictional individuals predict that the intake was simply a large-scale organizational sweep, not necessarily a precursor to dramatic change. The uncertainty creates lively discussion in the storyline, mirroring real-world behavior whenever people interpret limited information. These expectations, diverse, speculative, and emotionally charged, give viewers a sense of connection to the fictional world, making them feel like they are part of the conversation. The narrative reinforces that nothing concrete has been confirmed, but the storyline remains charged with potential, keeping viewers curious about how the fictional authorities will address the completion of the intake and what the next chapter of the story may reveal. After the fictional intake window closes, intake centers lock their doors and shift into processing mode. This part of the storyline focuses on the behind-the-scenes work, counting, recording, verifying, sorting, and digitally cataloging all notes collected during the 3-day operation. The narrative describes rooms filled with staff members, supervisors reviewing counts, machines verifying note authenticity, and databases receiving updated totals. This fictional system reset is portrayed as a technical, methodical process, emphasizing that the intake was not about exchange or conversion, but about gathering and organizing. The script uses this moment to stabilize the pace, giving the storyline a grounded, procedural feeling. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes sequence used in thrillers to bridge the gap between high-intensity moments and future plot reveals. And while nothing explosive happens during this fictional reset, the audience knows that what happens next, after all notes are processed, is where the storyline might take a new direction. Once the fictional system begins calculating and reviewing totals, the public enters what the storyline calls the anticipation phase. During this period, the fictional community starts paying close attention to any updates, announcements, or statements that may follow the intake event. Characters discuss the possibility of future system changes, improvements, or modernization efforts within the fictional financial environment. Meanwhile, analysts in the story advise that recalibration periods can take time and that viewers should not expect immediate changes. This phase becomes a crucial storytelling element because it sets the stage for future episodes, updates, or imagined developments. It keeps the fictional world open-ended, ensuring that the storyline remains flexible and capable of expanding. Viewers become invested not because something has happened yet, but because the fictional environment feels charged with potential, making them eager for whatever comes next in this entertainment-based scenario. As the fictional storyline concludes, the final message to viewers is simple, clear, and engaging. Stay observant, stay calm, and stay connected as the narrative unfolds. In this fictional world, the 3-day Vietnam Dong and Taekwondo was not portrayed as an ending, but as the beginning of a new chapter. The acceptance of all notes, old, new, large, small, served as a narrative device to unify the fictional community and create momentum for the next episode. The closing message emphasizes that the story is still evolving, and while no confirmation or change is stated within the fictional world, the scenario remains open for exploration in future updates. The audience is reminded that this script represents entertainment, speculation, and creative storytelling designed to build atmosphere and suspense. As with all narrative-based content, viewers are encouraged to enjoy the unfolding fictional journey, stay tuned for future updates, and continue following the channel as the story progresses into its next phase.